Okay, welcome back to Analytical Astrology, and this is episode 5. And there's a 5. Five is the number of Mercury, and Mercury is the symbol of man or mankind. And maybe 5 and Mercury go together because we have 5 senses, and that's the connection. But I wanted to look a little bit at the symbol here, because beneath Mercury we have a cross, and that's a cross of matter, as they say, whatever matter may mean, and we can discuss that. And I think it's interesting because on the one hand we've got a horizontal line which is you asleep or lying down, and at the same time we've got a vertical line which is you awake and involved with the world. So the two together show matter, and this cross can be sunrise, noon, sunset and midnight. Or you could find this is spring, let's say summer, autumn and winter. So either way we've got 4 points, we've got maybe 4 signs represented, but we get the idea of time passing. And so what's a major factor of life on earth, and that is time passing, at least the way we look at things. And so these symbols are old, and they've been around for a long time. I'm running out of paper here. Let me do this. So there's the cross, which is matter. We've got a semicircle that represents soul or reflection, and we've got the circle that represents spirit. And it's interesting, if you look at the symbol for Jupiter, right, it's like that. So we have matter and soul, but there's no spirit with Jupiter. And depending on what we think spirit means and soul means, that's telling us something about Jupiter. And the opposite is Saturn. So Saturn's got matter and soul, but Saturn doesn't have any spirit either. Whereas Venus, goddess of love, there we go, a circle over a cross. So Venus has spirit and matter, but Venus has no soul. Venus does not reflect anything, it seems. And so this is Mercury, and man has, if we take Mercury as being the symbol of man, matter, spirit and soul, all 3 components, let's say, we have access to all 3, or we're going to have experiences, or we're capable of maybe developing understanding in 3 different areas, on 3 levels of awareness, we could say. And so that's Mercury and represents man. But this is Pluto. And I'm taking the symbol that is used. It's easy to think that we're the high point of civilization because we've got the internet and computers and all the rest of it. But I think we have to remember that the ancients knew an awful lot more than we maybe gave them credit for. And so, not that Pluto, this symbol for Pluto was created thousands of years ago, but if we take a look at it, with Pluto, we've got the cross of matter, we've got a lot of soul, a lot of reflective ability, and very little spirit within Pluto. And what spirit there is isn't even connected to the semicircle or the cross, as it is with Mercury, as it is with Venus. And so later I'm going to talk about Julia, and she talks about Pluto, and other people talk about Pluto as representing an obnoxious, a difficult, a threatening, a bad boss, let's say, or a bad partner. And I want to say it isn't. Pluto represents the masses. It represents group activity, and it does not represent one individual of any type of character, good or bad, or threatening or friendly or whatever. And I think people ought to get out of the habit of thinking of Pluto as being a personal influence in a chart. And so I'm going to write down as well that in the notes for this, take a look at the cross and the circle and the semicircle, and ponder on them and think about them and keep them in the back of your mind and wonder about them from time to time. And I'd like to make the point that whatever you think you know about these 3 symbols and whatever you put together, and I'm including me with this as well, because no matter how much we think we know, compared to what there is to know about these three symbols, we don't know anything. So I'm sort of encouraging you not to get a big head when you discover something. When you see something or discover something, remember it and move on. Don't get big ideas that you actually, you know what I mean? So I must stop being harsh with people. They tell me. Okay, that goes there. So this next bit, the main part of this is about somebody called Julia. And I had spoken to Julia when she lived in Denver. And at the time that I asked people a while ago if they wanted to talk about their natal chart, and she responded, and we had a call. And I emailed her about the 9th house material, and she emailed back to say that she'd moved back to Virginia from Colorado, and that's a long journey. And also that Pluto was in her 4th house, and so she was expecting more changes. And so I'd like to tell you this from the beginning, the way it happened, because it's the kind of thing that happens, and you might find it's your experience as well. So Julia, 27 Gemini here, 27 Sagittarius, and she happens to have 27 Virgo rising, 27 Pisces over here. Let me just look through the camera. Okay, you can see that all right. So she told me that she had moved. She has Venus down here at 27 Sagittarius as well. And she told me she had moved, and I found myself wondering, is it a 4th house matter? So that the move from Denver back to Virginia was something to do with the 4th house. And she thought it might be because of mentioning Pluto at what 1 Capricorn is round about here, somewhere in the 4th house. But then I wondered, is it really a 9th house matter? So that the move from Denver back to Virginia is because of what was going on to do, something had been activated or was active to do with the 9th house that caused her or brought about a long distance trip. Okay, so it's easy to think, okay, Pluto down here in the 4th, it's a change of home, therefore it's Pluto. But is it really Pluto? And is it a 9th house matter? Another thing was, does the event happen because of transits to the natal chart, which is this one, or does it relate to the relocation chart for Denver, Colorado? So I forget what time of day she was born, but let's say if you're born at 8 o'clock in the evening in New York City and you relocate to Los Angeles, you calculate a chart for 5 p.m. Los Angeles, and that'll give you the relocation chart for Los Angeles. And it's important to have relocation charts because planets change houses, and so things happen in different areas, or things happen differently depending on where you're located. Okay, so I wrote back to Julia and asked her why she had moved. So at the same time, she has Taurus up here in the 9th, and I thought, Taurus there, Venus down here in the 3rd or the 4th, maybe she moved because of the influence of a father, or maybe to do with brothers and sisters, and the fact that Venus is in Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter in the 5th, maybe there was a child involved. Okay, so I wrote back, and she told me that she started in Virginia, then she moved to Texas for work. She didn't like it, she got a transfer to Denver. From Denver she moved to California, where she had a child. Then she moved back to Denver with her husband. She later got divorced there and had this other long-term relationship that didn't work out. So she moved from Denver to Florida. Didn't like it much there, and moved back to Colorado for her daughter's education. And when that was finished, she stayed in Denver for a bit, then she moved back to Virginia. That was a lot of detail. And so this is the kind of thing that can happen to you. You ask somebody for information about an area of life, and you glance at the chart and you see maybe one planet involved, and you think maybe 1 or 2 things will happen, or 1 or 2 reasons for the event happening. And then you get a lot of detail back and you wonder, what did I miss? Why didn't I see that? And maybe because you only glanced at the chart. But what I want to say to you is that if you follow the methods here, then you're going to find that later on with practice, even if you only glance at a chart, you're going to see a lot. So maybe in the first time you try this, you get surprised by the amount of information you get back to do with that one house, let's say. But you're going to find that very quickly you're expecting a lot of information and the kind of information you get back is what you had been expecting.